गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हम एक हमारा एम्बेसडर त्रिगुनायत के साथ इंडिया और वेस्ट एशिया का चर्चा करेंगे और इसके लिए सबसे पहले मैं एम्बेसडर साहब को स्वागत करता हूं। सर, गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट।
गुड इवनिंग एंड जय हिंद सर, थैंक यू फॉर इनवाइटिंग
जय हिंद। ये वैसे एम्बेसडर साहब जो हैं वो हमारे चैनल में पहले आ चुके हैं, पर वो सब एज पार्ट ऑफ अ पैनल वगैरह वगैरह पहले बार हमारे साथ 1-to-1 चर्चा कर रहे हैं। और जैसे आप सबको पता है, हमारे ये ही इज बीन आवर एम्बेसडर इन जॉर्डन, लिबिया एंड माल्टा, एंड मैं मानता हूँ ही इज अ एक्सपर्ट इन वेस्ट एशिया अफेयर्स। अगर 3 देशों में वहाँ इफ यू बीन एम्बेसडर, यू आर एन एक्सपर्ट ऑफ दैट एरिया। उसके अलावा ये बहुत थिंक टैंक्स में हैं और बहुत लिखते भी हैं। इनके आर्टिकल्स हमने बहुत पढ़ा है और ज्ञान सीखा है, और इसीलिए मैंने सोचा कि आज हम इनको बुलाएं और वेस्ट एशिया के बारे में बात करें। सो बिफोर यू गो, आई जस्ट सेट द स्टेज इन 2 minutes कि वेस्ट एशिया व्हाट आर द इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग्स, एंड देन आप यू कैन टेक ओवर। जैसे हमें पता है, ये वेस्ट एशिया का नक्शा है आपके सामने। आजकल इजराइल और हमास के बीच में गाजा में घमासान लड़ाई हो रहा है रोज। ये रेड सी और यमन और सोमालिया के इलाके में और नॉर्थ अरेबियन सी में पायरेसी और हौतीस गिरा रहे हैं ऑयल टैंकर्स। अभी एक ऑयल टैंकर को डुबा दिया। इसके अलावा ईरान अपना खेल खेल रहा है, और ईरान और पाकिस्तान के बीच में भी एक छोटा झड़प हुआ है। और यहाँ एक्चुअली अगर इंग्लिश में बोला जाए तो वेस्ट एशिया इज ऑन द बॉइल। वेस्ट एशिया जो है उबल रहा है, पश्चिमी एशिया उबल रहा है। इस माहौल में हमें पता होना चाहिए और याद होना चाहिए कि इंडिया का रिलेशनशिप वेस्ट एशिया के साथ क्या है। एक कल्चरल रिलेशनशिप है, एक पारंपरिक रिलेशनशिप है। बहुत साल तक वो हमारे इस काफी देश इस इलाके में हमारे पोस्टेज स्टैम्प भी इस्तेमाल करते थे। मेरे ख्याल में 70-72 तक तो हमारे पोस्टल स्टैम्प भी हमारे ही इस्तेमाल करते थे। हमारे पीएनटी के लोग जाके उनके पोस्टल सर्विस चलाते थे। इसके अलावा इस इलाके से हमारा पूरा एनर्जी रिसोर्सेस, गैस या तेल वहां से आता है, राइट। और हमारे बहुत गहरे संबंध हैं इस इलाके में, और हमारे बहुत लोग यहाँ काम करते हैं, और हमारे वहां यहाँ से फॉरेन रेमिटेंस आता है। तो किसी सूरत में देखेंगे तो वेस्ट एशिया के हर देश हमारे लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, और ये उबल रहा है। तो और इसके अलावा हम इसी के थ्रू हमारा जो नया प्लान है आईमेक यहाँ से गुजरता है, यानी राइट मिडिल ईस्ट इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर। ओके, तो इस हालत में वेस्ट एशिया और इंडिया का क्या संबंध है, क्या अहमियत है, क्या इश्यूज हैं, इसी के बारे में हमारे साथ एम्बेसडर त्रिगुनायत बात करेंगे। सर, ऑल योर्स, ओवर टू यू। आप किसी भाषा में बात कर सकते हैं, हिंदी या इंग्लिश।
थैंक यू सर। एक तो मैं आपका बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूं कि आपने मुझे बुलाया, और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ ये है कि हम उस एरिया के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, जैसा आपने कहा, जो भारत के लिए मैं समझता हूँ एक तरह से एक एग्जिस्टेंशियल रिक्वायरमेंट है और नीड है हमारे लिए। क्योंकि देखिए 70% लगभग हमारा ऑयल एंड गैस वहाँ से आता है, 90% गैस इस रीजन से आती है। और अगर हमको इंडस्ट्रियल अपना ग्रोथ आगे बढ़ाना है, जीडीपी ग्रोथ 8-10% करना है, तो एनर्जी की बड़ी आवश्यकता होती है। तो अगले 25-30 साल तक भारत जो है उसकी डिपेंडेंसी हाइड्रोकार्बन्स के ऊपर बनी रहेगी, और उस लिहाज से भी ये रीजन हमारे लिए बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट है। दूसरी चीज़ हमारी फूड सिक्योरिटी के लिए भी बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट है। और फूड सिक्योरिटी इसलिए कि हम वहाँ से फर्टिलाइज़र और गैस ये सब वहाँ से इंपोर्ट करते हैं। कई काफ़ी सारे मुल्क हैं, चाहे वो जॉर्डन हो, ट्यूनिस हो, इजिप्ट हो, मोरक्को, तो इन सब मुल्कों से हम काफ़ी फर्टिलाइज़र भी वहाँ से करते हैं। ओमान एक दूसरा और देश है जहाँ से भी हम यूरिक एसिड और यूरिया वगैरह मंगाते हैं। तो इस तरह से ये बहुत ज़्यादा हमारे इकोनॉमिकली उसके लिए भी बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है। आपने कहा एक हमारा कल्चरल और सिविलाइजेशन ताल्लुक है। देखिए दिलमुन सिविलाइजेशन और इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन, उसका हजारों साल पुराने हमारे के साथ ताल्लुकात हैं। और मैरीटाइम में उसमें भारत एक टाइम पे सबसे बड़ी मैरीटाइम पावर हुआ करता था। तो उस वक्त में ओमान और ये सारे जो पोर्ट्स हैं वहाँ के, वो हमारे एक ट्रांजिट हुआ करते थे, और आज भी वो बड़ा एक इम्पॉर्टेंट जगह है। और इसीलिए दुकम पोर्ट जिसकी बात आजकल होती है उस पर भारत का भी काफ़ी ध्यान है, और अडानी आजकल वहाँ पर पोर्ट डेवलपमेंट भी करने वाले हैं। उसके अलावा हम ये देखते हैं कि हमारे जो 70 के दशक तक, और आपने बड़ा अच्छा कहा कि पोस्ट इंडियन पोस्टल सिस्टम वहाँ था, लेकिन उसके अलावा जो भारत की एक करेंसी थी, वो भी इंडियन रुपी जो था, लीगल टेंडर था वहाँ पर 70 तक काफ़ी सारे कंट्रीज के अंदर में। और उसके बाद जब इनकी इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ काफ़ी बढ़ी, पेट्रो डॉलर्स बहुत आने शुरू हुए, तो इनका इन्वेस्टमेंट और नज़रिया ज़्यादातर चला गया वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज की तरफ। और ज़्यादातर लोग कंट्रीज जो थे नेटो मेंबर्स बने, नेटो सेंटो और जो अमेरिका लेड कोल्ड वॉर के टाइम पे उन ग्रुप्स के अंदर में ये ज़्यादातर कंट्रीज है, जबकि भारत नॉन अलाइनमेंट में रहा उस वक्त में। तो ज़्यादातर पाकिस्तान के साथ में, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान एक अभिन्न अंग था उस अमेरिकन पॉलिसी का इस एरिया में 70s 80s तक। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि ये उस वक्त में ये सब भी उसी का एक पार्ट थे। और एक टाइम पे तो आप ये देखें 79 से पहले तो जो ईरान और सऊदी अरेबिया और इजराइल, ये तीनों एक ही साइड में थे अमेरिका के साथ में। एक 79 के बाद से जो ये वहाँ पर जब झगड़ा शुरू हुआ है इनका, जब से वहाँ पे इस्लामिक रजीम कयातुल्लाह खुमानी की आई ईरान में, तो शिया सुन्नी डिवाइड, जियोपॉलिटिकल डिवाइड, जियो इकोनॉमिक डिवाइड, जियो रिलीजियस कॉन्टेस्टेशन, ये सारी चीज़ें वहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा स्टार्ट हो गई। चाहे वो ईरान और इजराइल के बीच में एग्जिस्टेंशियल वॉर हो, चाहे वो सऊदी अरेबिया के साथ में उनका कॉम्पिटिशन हो, सुन्नी शिया सुन्नी डिवाइड के तहत, और एक सुप्रीमेसी अपनी लाना चाहते हैं। उसके साथ साथ हम देखते हैं कि वहाँ पर एक और मुल्क है टर्की, जिसने अपना अलग ही तरह का पॉलिटिकल इस्लाम को आगे बढ़ाया। तो वो जो है वो अपना एक इस्लामिक लीडरशिप बनाना चाहता था पूरी तरह से, लेकिन उनकी इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन ने उसको सपोर्ट नहीं किया। तो अब हम एक नई तरह की मिडिल ईस्ट को देख रहे हैं। ये इट इज ऑन ए बॉयल, वेरी वॉलेटाइल स्टेट। आप देखें हर समय वहाँ पर कुछ ना कुछ समस्या रहती है, और एक तरह से ऑयल कर्स हो जाता है जिसको कह सकते हैं। हालांकि प्रॉस्पेरिटी है। हमने देखा कि जब अरब स्प्रिंग हुआ तो वहाँ पर किस तरह से लोग सुई जनरस एकदम बाहर आए, और उन्होंने जगह जगह प्रोटेस्ट करी और अपनी डिमांड्स मांगी। बट जो 40-42 साल पुराने लीडर्स थे वो सब गिरे उस वक्त में वहाँ पर, इजिप्ट से लेके लिबिया, टूनिस, इन सब जगहों में, यमन। लेकिन उस सब के बावजूद, क्योंकि जियो पॉलिटिकल कॉन्टेस्टेशन इसलिए ज़्यादा जरूरी है कि उनकी जियो स्ट्रेटेजिक लोकेशन और उनकी जो इकोनॉमिक वेल्थ है, सॉवरेन वेल्थ फंड ट्रिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स के हैं, जिनका इन्वेस्टमेंट अमेरिका में और दूसरे कंट्रीज में है, तो उनके लिए भी ये बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है। तो उसकी वजह से हम यहाँ देखते हैं कि बहुत ज़्यादा कंपटीशन रहता है। जब कंपटीशन सुपर पावर्स के बीच में होता है किसी भी जगह में, तो आप समझ सकते हैं कि इनस्टेबिलिटी इज ए मस्ट, उसको कोई कुछ रोक नहीं सकता है। और वो ये अनफॉर्चुनेटली इनका ये है। बट हमने देखा कि अभी पिछले कुछ सालों में ये देख रहे हैं हम कि जैसे जैसे ग्लोबल वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर एक तरह का चेंज होता गया, एक हाइपर पावर यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स बन गया, कोल्ड वॉर एंड हो गया, रशिया थोड़ा सेकेंडरी पोजीशन के ऊपर में आ गया, तो अमेरिका जो है वो खुद भी एक बहुत बड़ा ऑयल और गैस में पावर बन गया है, दुनिया की नंबर 1 एक तरह से कहा जा सकता है। तो वो एक ऑटोमेटिकली एक कॉम्पिटिटिवनेस आ गई मिडिल ईस्ट के ऑयल के ऊपर, उनकी डिपेंडेंसी काफ़ी कम हो गई। और उसके चलते, और उनका जो चीन से जब साइनो चाइन यूएस कंपटीशन शुरू हुआ है, तो उनका फोकस इंडो पैसिफिक की तरफ और ज़्यादा हो गया। उससे जो अरब कंट्रीज़ हैं, जो खास तौर से डिपेंडेंट थे अमेरिका के ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा, उनको ये लगने लग गया कि ये अमेरिका अब रिलायबल पार्ट नहीं रहा। और उसके फिजिकल एविडेंसेस भी उनको दिखे। हमने देखा कि जब वो जो सऊदी अरेबिया और यमन की जो लड़ाई चल रही थी, जिसमें आप सोच सकते हैं कि कम से कम 27 कंट्रीज़ की फोर्सेस लड़ रही थी, अरब कंट्रीज़ की, खाली अकेले यमन के हुतीज़ के खिलाफ। और 5 साल से ये वॉर चलता रहा, और उसके बाद में उसका कोई नतीजा नहीं हुआ। और हुतीज़ जो थे वो सऊदी अरेबिया की 50% तक की ऑयल प्रोडक्शन फैसिलिटी को एक दिन में अटैक कर पाए। और उन्होंने सारा जो अमेरिकन पैट्रियट मिसाइल्स का जितना भी था उसको भेज दिया वहां पर। तो उसके चलते एक तरह के, जो आप सोचिए, हंड्रेड्स ऑफ बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स के जो लेटेस्ट इक्विपमेंट और आर्म्स सऊदी अरेबिया खरीदता है, बिगेस्ट बायर है अमेरिकन वेपन्स का, अगर वो वल्नरेबल हो जाता है तो उनकी एक थॉट प्रोसेस में चेंज आना निश्चित है, स्वाभाविक है। इसी तरह आप देखेंगे अबू धाबी तक उन्होंने मार किया, वहां उसमें एक इंडियन भी मारा गया हमारा। तो ये जो चीजें हैं वो बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है, जिसकी वजह से वहां की जियो पॉलिटिक्स में बड़ा अंतर आया। और उधर ईरान जो है 20 साल से सैंक्शंस में है, लेकिन उसके बाद में भी लाइव एंड किकिंग जिसको कहते हैं वो चल रहा है अपना, अपनी उसकी फोर्सेस बढ़ गई, उसने अपना एक स्ट्रेटेजिक लीवर्स जो हैं, हुती हो, हिजबुल्ला हो, हमास, उनके थ्रू एक तरह का एसिमेट्रिक एडवांटेज जिसको मिला हुआ है, और वो उसका लाभ उठाता पूरा का। तो ना वो ईरान को दबा पाए, ना दूसरे कंट्री, इजराइल अपनी जगह लड़ाई लड़ रहा है वहां पे हमास के साथ में, और फलस्तीन के साथ में उनकी वो समस्या नहीं खत्म हो रही है। तो अमेरिकन ने भी ये सोचा कि अब उनके बस की भी ये बात पूरी नहीं है, क्योंकि चीन एक तरह से बहुत ज्यादा आगे बढ़ गया था और ट्राइंग टू कम्पीट विद देम। तो उन्होंने कहा कि भाई इजराइल की इनके साथ कुछ मित्रता कराई जाए। तो ऐसे करके उन्होंने मैं कहूंगा कि अब्राहम अकॉर्ड्स, जिसकी ट्रंप की आइडिया था, हालांकि ट्रंप की पॉलिसीज काफी अजीब तरह की थी, लेकिन कम से कम मिडिल ईस्ट में उसने थोड़ी कोशिश जरूर की कि किस तरह से कुछ शांति बनाई जा सके। बड़ा कमर्शियल अप्रोच थी, डील मेकिंग अप्रोच थी, लेकिन वो यहाँ चल नहीं सकती क्योंकि लोग इमोशनली और सेंटिमेंटली इन्वॉल्व हैं अपनी फलस्तीन के स्टेटहुड के लिए, तो इसलिए वहां पर वो नहीं चली। डील ऑफ द सेंचुरी इसको बोलते थे। लेकिन अब्राहम अकॉर्ड्स वो एक सक्सेसफुल वेंचर साबित हुआ, जिसमें यूएई और बहरीन के साथ में उन्होंने 2020 में किया। लेकिन उसके बाद हमने देखा, और दो और स्टेट भी थी, और बीच में हमने देखा कि सऊदी अरेबिया भी इंटरेस्टेड हो गया, क्योंकि धीरे धीरे लोगों को लगने लगा कि ये पैलेस्टीनियन 76 साल पुराना इशू है, ये चलता रहेगा। लेकिन जो जियोपॉलिटिकल डायनामिक इतनी चेंज हो रही है कि किस तरह हम विद इन द रीजन जो है कैसे एक मोडस विवेंडी बनाएं, कैसे एक दूसरे के साथ रह सकें, एटलीस्ट बेयर मिनिमम, आई मीन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट शुड नॉट बी देयर। तो इसीलिए चीन पहले तो इराक ने शुरू किया था, वो चीन ने क्रेडिट लिया बाद में। तो चीन ने सऊदी अरेबिया और यूएई के बीच में भी एक साइमल्टेनियसली एक अच्छा तालमेल बना दिया, उनके डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस सुधर गए। और अभी भी इस वॉर के दौरान भी हम ये देख रहे हैं कि ईरान और सऊदी अरेबिया जो है वो कंसल्ट कर रहे हैं अभी भी। तो ये नहीं हुआ है कि उसकी वजह से इस जो इजराइल हमास का वॉर चल रहा है 5वां, उसकी वजह से इन देशों के बीच में कोई ज्यादा मनमुटाव आया हो, और दोनों कोशिश ये कर रहे हैं इसमें। तो इस तरह की सिचुएशन है जो बड़ी वॉलेटाइल है। देखिए लिबिया आज तक नहीं सुधरा है, जहां पर का नाटो इंटरवेंशन हुआ था, अभी तक वहां पर इनस्टेबिलिटी है। इराक जिसमें वॉर हुए 2 बार, बुश फैमिली ने अपना पूरा वहां किया, और मैं समझता हूं कि जो इन्वेजन ऑफ इराक है दैट वाज प्रोबेबली द मदर ऑफ ऑल इविल्स, बिकॉज उसकी वजह से हमने देखा कि सबसे ज्यादा इनस्टेबिलिटी इराक में आई। तो उसके बाद वहां पर टेररिज्म काफी बढ़ा, और अनइंटेंडेड कॉन्सिक्वेंस ये था कि इराक वाज गिवन ऑन ए प्लेटर टू ईरान। तो इरानियन मिलिशिया ग्रुप्स और उसके वो सब वहां बड़े इंपॉर्टेंट। तो दिस इज अनदर फेल्योर ऑफ द अमेरिकन पॉलिसी। अफगानिस्तान में हम देख ही चुके हैं कि क्या हुआ है। से सोवियत यूनियन ने जो मिस्टेक की वही अमेरिकन ने की, और अब जो भी उसके आता है। तो अफगानिस्तान इज अ ग्रेवयार्ड ऑफ एम्पायर्स। तो इन दैट केस वी हैव सीन दैट व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन दीज कंट्रीज। अब देयर आर अदर कंट्रीज व्हिच आर नॉन ऑयल जीसीसी कंट्रीज, जिनके पास में ऑयल नहीं है। तो वो कंट्रीज की हालत जो है इन वॉर्स की वजह से, चाहे वो रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर हो, चाहे वो आपका इजराइल हमास वॉर हो, उसके ऊपर काफी बड़ा इम्पैक्ट पड़ा है, सोशियो इकोनॉमिक इम्पैक्ट बहुत ज्यादा हुआ है। तो हमारे लिए दूसरी चीज जो सबसे, मैं भारत के कहूंगा थोड़ा सा, कि पहले हमारी 70s तक मैं कहूँगा अच्छी खासी रिलेशनशिप चल रही थी, लेकिन उसके बाद में किसी वजह से मुझे लगता है कि हमारी जो सरकारें थी उस वक्त की, उन्होंने ये सोचा कि शायद पाकिस्तान फैक्टर बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, चाहे वो ओआईसी के माध्यम से हो, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ इस्लामिक कोऑपरेशन कंट्रीज की वजह से हो, या इस्लाम एज फैक्टर। हम लोगों ने भी कभी ये नहीं बताया किसी कंट्री को, और ये मेरे अपने इंटरेक्शंस में जाहिर हुआ कि उनको ये लगे कि भारत एक दूसरे नंबर का मुस्लिम देश है दुनिया में, और भारत में मुसलमान कितने बड़े ऊपर तक पहुंच चुके हैं, बड़ी से बड़ी पोस्ट पे रह चुके हैं, देश के पूरे एक हिस्सा है। इस बात को मैं समझता हूं कि हम लोगों ने कोई महत्व नहीं दिया, और उन देशों को इस बात का पता भी नहीं था, और ना किसी ने उनको इस बारे में बोला। तो धीरे धीरे वो पाकिस्तान, हम ये मन में सोचते रहे कि वो पाकिस्तान के साथ जाते हैं, तो हमारी कोई हाई लेवल विजिट नहीं हुई। मैं आपको बताऊं कि 1982 में इंदिरा गांधी की विजिट जो यूएई हुई थी, उसके बाद प्रधानमंत्री मोदी की विजिट हुई। अब इससे अंदाजा आप लगा सकते हैं कि कब से 82 से और 2014 के बीच 15 में गए हो। तो ये जो चीजें हैं, इससे बड़ा अरब कल्चर भी थोड़ा डिफरेंट है। वो आपसे साथ साथ मिलना चाहते हैं, आपसे बात करना चाहते हैं, लेकिन वो एक पर्सनलाइज्ड रिलेशनशिप होती है इन लोगों के साथ। बहुत है, हमारी तरह के ही लोग हैं काफी कुछ। तो लेकिन ये हमारा जो एक हाई लेवल ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट हुआ, तो हमारी रिलेशनशिप इनके साथ एक ट्रांजैक्शनल रिलेशनशिप हो गई कि हमने ऑयल खरीदा वहां से, हम पैसे दे दिए, हमारे लोग वहां काम कर रहे हैं, तो ठीक है भाई, इंडियन लेबर है, उसको लेबर ही समझते हैं, वो लोग वहां करते रहे। अब वो वहां से रेमिटेंसेस करती है, तो वो बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है भारत के लिए, तो उसका वेलफेयर भी बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है। तो 3 E's बेसिकली डिसाइडेड आवर relationship with West Asia. E is energy security, the second E is economic engagement, and third E is the expatriates. So I think that, but today the situation has changed. Since 2014, I would say, or rather 2008, I was myself involved in the visit of Prime Minister Modi, Manmohan Singh in 2010 to Riyadh. And that was one thing that has really changed the whole concept. For the first time, they started talking of counter-terrorism cooperation. That was really an anathema until then. And then there was visits to Qatar, to UAE, to Oman and all. And a lot of new initiatives were done. But actually, I would say that after Prime Minister Modi came to power, the real focus and real thrust and change in the relationship from a transactional to strategic partnership, truly strategic partnership, only happened during these past 10 years. So today we have a tremendous collaboration in defense, in space, in nuclear, in counterterrorism, in the extradition of, in fact, a large number of offenders against India. In fact, from no country could you have got faster than what you are getting it from these countries, any of these people who used to run away to Dubai and elsewhere. So I think that today Indian community, which is really the largest, 9 million people, are really a great asset to India as well as to those countries. And their leaders basically recognize the contribution of the Indians to their own economies. And now they are welcoming Indians over everyone else. And that's a fact. And like you can see in the UAE, we have 3.5 million Indians in the country. And recently, it also shows the relationship is like for the only country, I think, apart from the US, where Prime Minister Modi has been to UAE 6 times already. Now, that is unheard of. And every time it has been more substantive than the other. Other thing you can see is that the respect for India has increased tremendously. Potential of India is being seen. And we have seen over time that the Pakistan factor has been completely decimated. Today, the major powers like the UAE, like Saudi Arabia, they care for India and they think whether it was Article 370, whether it was Pulwama or Balakot strike, they thought it is India's internal matter. Of course, they don't like the competition between India and China, or if India and Pakistan, and that they had to choose one or the other. That is something I think that they hate to do that, and they don't like it. So therefore, they want that all these countries must live together. But then they respect India's opinion that these issues with Pakistan are bilateral, and we will handle them bilaterally. They have also begun to understand the Pakistan's role as an exporter of terrorism, which I think is a tremendous success. And so I say that our policy, as far as West Asia is concerned, in my view of this government currently, and I would say that this is possibly one of the greatest success stories of the foreign policy as far as the Middle East is concerned. It does not mean that we don't have issues. Now, as far as Palestine and Israel, let me talk about. We have had a permanent stand, which we continue to maintain till today, that there should be a 2-state solution. Palestine must have a viable state, sovereign state, live side by side in peace with Israel. That has been India's position all through. But then we have dehyphenated our policies. Means we have relations with Israel, on its own terms, which is a strategic partner. We will have relations with Palestine and stand for the Palestinian cause as a direct thing. तो हमारे लिए पैलेस्टाइन उतना ही इम्पोर्टेंट है जितना वो पहले था, और आज भी भारत ये चाहता है। और इस वॉर जो चल रहा है इस वक्त, जो भारत के स्टेटमेंट्स आए हैं, उससे जाहिर होता है कि हम लोग पूरी तरह से चाहते हैं कि वहां पर शांति अमन बने। लेकिन और जिस तरह की सिचुएशन है इस वक्त इजराइल हमास वॉर के बीच में, उससे भारत काफ़ी कुंठित है, और उसने एक्सप्रेस किया है इसमें कि जल्दी से जल्दी वहाँ पर ह्यूमैनिटेरियन असिस्टेंस पहुँचाया जाए, सीज फायर हो। तो ये सारी चीज़ें भारत कोशिश कर रहा है। लेकिन मेरा मानना ये है कि शायद अगर बिगनिंग में, क्योंकि भारत को आज की डेट में ये सारे मुल्क, वेस्ट एशिया के हो, इजराइल हो, चाहे पैलेस्टाइन हो, चाहे जितने भी देश हैं, वो ट्रस्ट करते हैं और वो सोचते हैं कि भारत एक ऐसा देश है कि वो एक तरह का रोल अदा कर सकता है, एक फैसिलिटेटर का, और उसमें मैं समझता हूं कि अभी हमारा काम बाकी है।
Right. Sir, I have a first question. I'll larger issue. आजकल भी हम बात करते हैं भारत is supposed to be the net security provider, and that's what we aim in the Indian Ocean region. Many times, most of us forget that this Arabian Sea is also part of the Indian Ocean, larger Indian Ocean. And from what one has seen, पिछले 8-9 साल से, the shift which has happened with all West Asian nations and India, and the way, like you said, it has been one of our success stories, and we are slowly playing a greater role out there. And we are one end of the IMEC. It'll come through. IMEC आज नहीं तो कल आ ही जाएगा. It's a necessity. It's a mutual necessity of all nations. तो इस सब कुछ हम देखेंगे, and also our ships are deployed out there almost now. I think almost on a permanent basis. I don't see them coming out for the next 1-2 years. Now, would you say that at least one part in this area we are slowly becoming a net security provider?
Well, I
Overall
think that,
sense.
sir, when I was working in the Ministry of External Affairs as Joint Secretary, that time nearly every ambassador from these countries, Gulf and other countries, used to come and ask me that we want India to play a greater role as a security provider. And they wanted a lot of our armed forces personnel, whether they're retired or serving, to come and help them. That void somehow we did not take. And therefore, we have seen more Pakistanis or others working in there. But now they have realized that India is a resident power in the Indian Ocean. We have developed the Sagar strategy, which is for everybody's advantage. We have been fighting piracy for many, many years now, decades, in fact, since 2005 or 6. And now what you have seen during the Houthis attacks and the Red Sea, that the way India has provided or deployed these 10 ships and has provided the security not only to our own ships, but to the many ships in the region, has been providing, which is greatly appreciated by that. So you are absolutely right that today India is playing a much greater role. Moreover, India is also looking at possibility of collaborating in different islands with third powers. For example, with France, we are doing something in Djibouti, which is a very key point in Horn of Africa. Yeah. With Oman, we have in Dokkum Port. We are looking at other places.
Yeah, I think so. I think this thing, like you rightly said, that's also my opinion. कि हमारा जो diplomatic, not only when you say diplomatic, the military diplomatic and the political diplomatic outreach into this has to increase quite a bit. Absolutely. And the scope is there for us to increase it. On that, I've never had a doubt. The next thing which I wanted to ask, you see, one of the great powers, like आपने भी बताया, कि Iran is a shadowy power. It remains in shadows, but it has now today cast its long arm right up to Lebanon through Hezbollah and down to Red Sea through Houthis, and of course through it, and it controls Iran also. Our relationship with Iran, it has got shades of white and black. We have our equation with them through the Chabahar port and a lot of historic relationship also. But at the same time, in some cases, it feels as if we are against them. or they are acting against our interests. How do we do this and how do we handle this? Because this is a naughty problem which many people ask me.
Well, you are right, absolutely, sir. I think that one thing is a given that we have a historic and civilizational relationship with Iran. There is no doubt about it. But then Iran is also a country that is in the, when one could put it this way, line of fire of the West since at least 1979 for obvious geopolitical reasons. For a long time, we were able to bide our way out, and we were able to work, and they were supplying about 12% of our total energy requirements. Oil and crude oil was coming from there. We were talking of pipelines, whether it is TAPI or IPI or some other pipelines from that. Plus the cultural connect, they were very much interested with India. They were a lot of projects, but eventually then we decided, and we worked together. If you remember, in the first time in 2001 and all with Taliban with Iran, India was working very closely with Iran in that strategic dimension also. They are our strategic partner to a great extent. But under the American sanctions, which are mostly unilateral sanctions, which India officially does not recognize, and therefore Indian government says that they have not stopped anybody from importing oil from Iran. But then these companies which are importing from A, B, C, they are also importing from DEF or XYZ, and therefore they can come under the sanctions of the Americans, CAATSA sanctions. And therefore they have themselves been withdrawing from that area. But then India realized that the problem of Pakistan is going to continue, and we could not reach out to Afghanistan. And therefore, in our Central Asia connect, in our connect to Afghanistan, Iran once again acquired a much greater strategic importance. And therefore, India started once again push. We have seen just now our minister was there recently, and Iran plays, as you mentioned, also this 3H, its major group, 3 or 4H, we can say. They are in Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, everywhere, and they can be activated at will. And so it can have a plausible deniability. At the same time, it can use them to have a terrible impact on the adversaries of Iran. So India, in that sense, wants this connectivity. Now, connectivity is very important for us because of the outreach to Afghanistan and to Central Asia. And that's when the Chabahar port came into being. It's a strategic port. And India worked very close when you saw the Gwadar port just across, which is coming up. So we had to find a way where we can bypass that. And to a great extent, this IMEC project, which is there, also provides us a safer corridor whenever it happens. So in this case, the Chabahar is very important, and therefore Chabahar has been mostly been kept out of the purview of the sanctions. But there was a slow progress on that, and it has been decided now that we'll have a high-level monitoring mechanism at the level of minister, and which will report to the Prime Minister about the progress in this. So I have feeling that now we are getting back into the thing once again, and we have had the visits of, good thing about relationship with Iran is that the high-level visits have continued, whether it is the Ibrahim Raisi's visit or Prime Minister Modi's visit or foreign minister's visits and all. So which really, or defense minister also for that matter. So in which way is very important. Secondly, Iran also has very good relations with Russia, and India has excellent relations with Russia. So there is also a possibility. Thirdly, you have to continue to engage with Iran because of China. Because in my view, China is going to be a major challenge for India in every geography, and more so in South Asia and West Asia. So therefore, we have to be very, very careful about this and find ways with working with all the countries so that they just don't go to one side or the other. So it is an important country from these days. See, sometimes many of our Arab friends used to ask us that why are you so close to Israel? To Iran.
Iran.
What do you get out of Iran? But they refuse to understand that this is the connectivity which is extremely important for India when growing as a regional and major power.
Yeah, I agree with you. One more thing I want to, a connected thing which I want to highlight, and then you could comment on it also.
Yeah.
See, like you rightly said, China-Iran relationships are going up. Russia-Iran relationship is going up. and we need that relationship and with us as this thing to handle Afghanistan also, and this has been traditional. Then next thing you see is Pakistan China relationship to hai. It's been growing, and it's the number of exercises they're carrying out in North Arabian Sea is not funny. Then you also see Pak Turkey coming into the equation.
Very
So
true.
literally, if you see, what the Americans call the axis, some kind of a thing between Pakistan, Turkey, Iran, China, and Russia are coming, and might be this is focused more against the West, but there's a spillover to us also. And in this whole story, Russia and Iran are our friends. I mean, in some manner,
Yes.
Iran it might not be our enemy, it's not our friend either, but we always have a habit of picking up slack at any time and getting on with it. So, how do we handle this naughty problem? Because I think we need to, I mean, this is something which I keep thinking of.
Well, you are so right, sir. But I mean, even I have written about it, and I call this as cryptarch. This new kind of an axis that is emerging: China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, Turkey, Afghanistan, and outlier is Qatar. So that's cryptarch, which I have written about it in my book as well. And I think that this is a serious development that can take place. And most of these happen, I would suggest, is that because of the US policies in this region. Mainly, that's what is coalescing these countries because of they're picking conflicts for whatever reasons. They have different reasons for that, each country, and their own favorites. Because when you have the Abraham Accords and so-called, let's say, Sunnis getting together in one wing, then this was the one of the grouping which was going there. But I have only one thing which is, in my view, can counter it. Among all these countries, you have several civilizational countries in these. And whether it is Iran, Iran is one country which, despite its closeness to Iran or to Russia or to China and its animosity with the West, it still feels a lot of affection, I would say, for strategic autonomy. It wants to say that I am the leader. I will come up with this solution. And that's a good thing for us. And it's a non-aligned country also. So recently, Russia, again, a civilizational power which cannot be cowed down. So I have a feeling that there could be accommodation, strategic alignments for some time among these countries. But if we were to see that they are going to become a sort of a major uh, grouping by itself as against the one against India in that way, I doubt very much. So India is doing is in these countries it is moving more in bilateral and regional context, which is a good development in my view, and that's how we are going to we are playing with this, having friendship with all, invoking the areas of congruence and convergences with each of these countries, and standing where we must. Because, like for example, in the case of Russia, external affairs minister says that there should be certain options available. We need to make options available. Iran, like it is just arbitrariness on the part of the Americans,
US,
and
yes, there's no doubt.
policies and double standards which have caused this kind of situation.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and like आपने जैसे बताया, there are interesting times ahead, and I feel there is a lot of opportunity, and I don't see a threat, but at the same time there are challenges also. So in
Very
this
true.
entire game, as India rises, we have to be ready to take on the opportunities and also meet the challenges head on. So having said that, there are a lot of halla gulla and a lot of euphoria around the IMEC sometime last year, if you remember,
Ji.
around the G20. Where do you think that will go, and how do you think that will get picked up? I think eventually my view is that it will come through. But
No,
let
I
me get
agree with
your
you, sir. I
perspective.
mean, I fully agree with you that this is an excellent project. And, it's very recently that India has started working out or expanding into a regional or sub-regional formats. So far, it was all bilateral. It is only after the I2U2 signing of that with the India, USA, UAE, and Israel, that things began to gel, that India started playing a little more role in the region and in a regional format, and which is a very successful, I would say, work in progress. There are a lot of projects which are still going on, whether the UAE funded or all, whether on the food security corridors, in which there are we have certain similarities and congruences. And then comes IUSU. There is another one: India, USA, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. I mean, in that one also again. So a mix of these became the IMEC, which was agreed to and signed on the sidelines of the G20 summit in New
G20.
Delhi, in which it was a Europe corridor. So connectivity to Europe has always been important for us. We have been trying it through the Russian corridor, INSTC by Iran and Russia, and with Central Asia. That, because of the sanctions, has had its own problems. So we need to identify an alternate route. So India, UAE, both are on the same page. As you know, when Prime Minister recently visited, we have signed an agreement, framework agreement with UAE. And recently, the Greek Prime Minister was here. Again, the IMEC was discussed with them, because that happens to be the endpoint for this route. India itself is continuing to work on it. UAE says that it is continuing to work on it. It is only that normalization of Saudi Arabia and Israel, which are the current problem, and that is also
Problem.
because of the Israel-Hamas war. Now, whenever this war happens, perhaps it will have two good fallouts of this. One would be some kind of a discussion on the future of Palestine.
Palestine.
And the
Yeah.
second would be further normalization of ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel, which would take away this. So I fully agree with you, sir, that this, if not now, it's in any case a 10 years, 8-year-old project, but
Yeah,
it is
it's not.
mutually beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, I think so. So we've covered a lot of things, and I see some interesting questions. So I'll take them on because people have, So I'll this first question, though it is a little out of syllabus, I'll take it because he put this question 2 hours back. So he's very passionate about this question. He says, "Can India use Israeli lobby in the US to influence USA's decision on Pakistan? To what extent will the US deep state respond to this maneuver on the part of Israeli lobby?"
Well, I think that the Jewish lobby is the strongest lobby, as long as they are talking of existence and sustenance of Israel. That is their sole objective.
Yeah,
We are collaborating with them for a long time. Now, at least we learned from them how to use essentially the influence at the Capitol and elsewhere in the US. So the Indian, but I must say that today the Indian groups and Indian community in the diaspora is far, far stronger. And they are able to do anything, and a lot of things they do for us, starting from civil nuclear agreement down to the recent times. So they play a great role there themselves. But we work closely with the Jews. As far as Pakistan is concerned, I have a feeling, I mean, two things I would like to say is that the Pakistan has this uncanny ability to encash its nuisance value, with anybody, whether it is USA, whether it is China, whether it is Russia, all of them. Earlier it was talking in terms of Pakistan, Afghanistan. Now no longer Afghanistan is there. But the Americans also like to play one against the other. This is in their DNA. So as soon as we are aware of this, that this is going to be their DNA, playing to the hilt, as long as you are playing their game. The moment you don't play their game, you might be fixed. So you have to be careful in that. So I don't expect much, but USA itself understands that what Pakistan is. They are the ones who share some intelligence with us regarding the terror groups. They are the ones who are always with us on designating terror groups in the UN. They have started supporting India for their own geostrategic reasons vis-a-vis China. That is so. As long as we are clear in that format, I don't see that we are going to have a problem. Today, India is a country which is needed by everyone. That's where. So when you are in a sweet spot, you need to maximize your gains.
yeah, I completely agree with you on that score. I would just like to add, whatever other things are, USA has not forgotten that Pakistanis let them down in Afghanistan, and USA also has a requirement of keeping Pakistan down. and keeping a track on the China-Pakistan equation. Because the China-Pakistan equation, the military equation, has got no bearing with what's happening in China internally and what's happening with Pakistan internally, because that is growing at an exponential pace. So
But
if
sir,
US,
one thing in my view, what we have I've witnessed the policy on Pakistan and China. Is interesting is that India has moved on from Pakistan.
yeah,
Now
that I agree.
it is working more with China, and China
China.
is understands that India is the only country in the region and else outside which can stand up to it. So that is
Yeah,
I think
I think that's a
is
major achievement.
yeah,
And but the danger, like you said, Pakistan has nuisance value. And
yes.
if I may put it, I was just tracking their military to military equation, and
Oh,
it came to me as a surprise, right? That 55% of China's arms export are today to Pakistan,
right.
which I never knew. This I came to know a couple of days back. And 77% of Pakistan's arms import, are from China.
Yes.
So there is a deep dependency, interdependency there. And if India and US don't keep a track and finger on this interdependency, it might grow out of hand. So to that extent, we need to have our fingers on the pulse here. And I
It's,
think the Americans know it more than any one of us, because I've always maintained that Pakistan is hereafter a battleground state between USA and China. But then, sir, we'll
absolutely.
leave China as it is. We'll leave Pakistan as it is. This is something which I have been saying. You also said it, but Vishwanathan wants a clarification. So, in several earlier occasions, you had stated that China, Russia, Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, and North Korea have tacitly formed a economic military grouping with such a formidable group. Supported by militants, the Middle East can become a hot cake, throwing a formidable challenge to Israel. Can the USA continue to offer credible support, oblique defense, given the changing dynamics of warfare? What are the challenges for India in the IOR, given the reality that China's influence seems to be considerably significant once again all around us in Europe? Uh, and is Europe irrelevant now? So one thing, let me tell you, in Gunner Shot, I get difficult questions, and
Yes.
a lot of people who they think and come. It's not like other channels, so you could take your time, and because actually he's really summarized what you said, but
Yeah,
I would like you to.
it's a very important comment, I would say. It may require a very long time, but we don't have that.
But I
But
don't mind. You can
I would
take it.
say, sir, that no doubt, I mean, this is going to be a bigger grouping, which will continue to emerge. And I feel that now, after the Russia-Ukraine war, whatever be its outcome, and again, this is a failure of the US policy. Many people may disagree with me because, see,
No,
if
I agree with you.
somehow US and Russia were able to have a certain modus vivendi, not even be friends. The I would say the rise of China, the way it is, malignant rise of China, could be contained. That has not happened. So China is using its policies and its influence, economic influence, embedding itself in all the countries in the region. So China is not playing Saudi against Iran. Because Saudi Arabia is its most important partner in the region. It has involved them in BRICS, in SCO, in other organizations. So today, these countries are also developing their own policy, which is called Act East policy. The Act East means going to their markets. That is India and China. So these countries are having their balancing act between India and China to a great extent. So I don't see a threat from in that sense coming against us. As far as uh, Pakistan factor already, as I said, is quite
No,
decimated.
we have spoken.
Russia is a country I maintain one way again. I maintain that Russia has been forced to need China more to counter the West. But Russia, as I know, having served there for 6, 7 years, needs India as much as the USA does to counter China within these organizations and outside also. It may sound bizarre, But this actually has a lot of reasoning if you come to think of it in your discussions with the Russian think tanks and the Russian officials. One find that. So I think that it is world is moving towards something called again a Cold War 2.0 kind of a syndrome. The multilateralism everybody is talking about is actually going down. Multilateral institutions like the UN and WTO and everything else, they just become totally ineffective in any scenario like this, except some small countries here and there. Even there, they are not wanted. The Africans don't want any peacekeeping forces from UN. I mean, this is something very different. But
Yeah,
at the same time, what I'm looking at is Europe. Economically, it is going down. It is in complete distress. It's becoming ultra rightist. Many of the countries in the region, so they are having their own internal difficulties. China is not a monolith anymore, also. China has its own internal problems. And you never know, it might even implode due to that. We are seeing the economic downturn. So these things may look on the face of it if you just see, but if you go a bit deeper, then it is not like that. Russia will not be happy to be a junior partner of China under no circumstances. And as I gave an argument about civilizational states cannot be subservient to it. So if suppose let us say there is a Russia, China combined and many countries go there and US and the West have their own pole. So if they're a bipolar world, India has the capacity today to emerge as a third pole, as a pole with a country which I call as nations for strategic autonomy. NSA. Now you don't call it non-alignment anymore because we are dealing with multi-alignments today. So these minilaterals are simply dots for a specific purpose, but they cannot be strategic objectives or orbits in which you can operate.
yeah, I completely agree with you about the third pole business. 1 year back, I wrote in the print that India is emerging as the third pole. Many people laughed at me, but now that's coming
So,
true. The next thing, I think you made a very important point, which I thought I must highlight to everyone. What is the value of this Russia-India equation to Russia? Right? Everyone says, like you, just to rephrase what you are saying, everyone says that Russia is slowly becoming a junior partner to China. But the fact is, as long as the India-Russia equation is strong, that will never happen. And India is the exit door for Russia to
absolutely.
get out of it. And not only that, in a change circumstance, I mean, we are all looking at it today in today's prism and today's America's world outlook. Tomorrow it might change.
Very true.
Tomorrow, come November and maybe next year, if
Yeah,
Mr. Trump comes back, this whole thing might change. In which
true.
case, you will have a new set of equations where you might uh, end up breaking this Russia-China equation also.
Yes,
So I mean, we have to be dynamic about it. I just thought I'll put my two bits to it.
absolutely.
Uh, okay. Now, this question is also a nice question by Tritik. He says, our relationship with the Arab world have improved significantly in the past decade. But on the flip side, there have been certain failures in our neighborhood. Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Maldives. Why?
Well, I think that, I mean, I always say that, and I don't know if it is misunderstood or not, but let me say it still. Sir, the neighbors are maybe the gift of geography, but sometimes they can be the pains of history. And that
Yeah,
is
I
something
agree with you.
that applies to our neighbors also. Because, see, I would say that our neighbors have also become smarter. Let's give them due credit. They have begun to play between India and China. Many of my friends in the neighborhood say, no, 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 it is not like this. We are not this, that. But the fact remains is that they look after their national interest as they perceive it. They know that there are two big powers, India and China. India has this neighborhood first policy, which is non reciprocal, everything. But the China is coming up with a very different way. Like what they have signed the defense agreement with Maldives,
With
for example.
Maldives.
Yeah, just that we will provide free. There are no free lunches in this world. Everybody knows about it. So, but at the same time, the Maldivian government, in its bid, has moved on to other side. Previously, there was other government which was moving more India first policy. Sri Lanka is a very peculiar example of the Chinese largesse of its debt diplomacy. And the way what happened to Sri Lanka, we have seen it. India is one country which has bailed it out completely. $4.5 billion, which is not a joke for India to do that. Bhutan is another country which is totally, mostly in sync with India, but Bhutan is also coming of age. So I think that going forward, as these countries, whether it is Bangladesh, whether it is other countries in the neighborhood, as they grow and as the complexities of the regional complexities between India and China and the global complexities of the disorder continues, they will continue to play one against the other. And I think that that is a reality we have to deal with. It is not a failure of a policy. There is, it is, whether
It's an
people may not
evolution of our
agree with it,
policies.
but this is a fight of checkbook diplomacy.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is something which we are now learning, because as our bank balances started increasing, our check is also coming out, and that's what, if you see, I mean, just to give a example, that is what our external affairs minister also said, that we don't bully people and give them all the aid regarding Maldives. So our check is becoming a little heavier. Things will improve, I'm sure of that. Okay. JBJP says, Ambassador Sir, based your analysis of the Arab world, please tell us on what basis Saudi Arabia gave highest civilian award to Modi ji in his earliest days as PM. What was the work done by them then? By then, okay.
Well, we have to understand something like this, that Prime Minister Modi happens to be the only leader who has been, uh, so to say, given the highest honors of many countries. It started off with UAE. The Palestinians gave him, he became the first leader to visit Palestine, first prime minister. He became the first prime minister to visit Israel. He became the first prime minister after 34 years to go to UAE, to Saudi Arabia, to other. You see, the relationship depends on what that country has in you. So, like even Prime Minister himself said, that this is in recognition of India's potential. Today, these countries are recognizing that India is a safer and a better place for investments or their returns. So, this is an economic thing which is couched in our cultural and other things. So, I think that today UAE is our third largest trading partner. Saudi Arabia is our fourth largest trading partner. So they are very important countries for us, for our, as we mentioned earlier, energy security and our population and our working together in IMEC and some other places. In G20, during the pandemic, every time India was there. Today, India is seen as a great power, a leader of the global south. And Saudi Arabia and India are working together, and UAE in the climate change business. So there are so many things we are working together. Earlier in 2019, we had helped when Saudi Arabia was holding the G20 presidency. India was completely back in that. Now this COP28, which was happening in the UAE, Prime Minister Modi went there because the chair of the COP28 was their oil company's chairman. And as you know, the oil companies have been in a lot of problems and criticism at that time. But Prime Minister Modi went there and supported UAE in its leadership position. So these are the kind of, it is not for giving it to a person, but I would say that Prime Minister Modi has developed tremendously good personal connect and relations, which we have to grant it. And that plays a great role today in diplomacy. Today, the diplomacy is conducted at the highest level, whether it is economic, political, military, whatever. It is at the top level it is done. And that is what they see, their own interest in India. So I would say that there is a recognition of India as a great place to do business with.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more than that, because look, for all of you, I would what I'll 1 minute, Akash. I would like to tell you, as India grows, these opportunities and all this will go up. The challenge for us is how do you handle them. But recognition that India will grow is irreplaceable. I mean, it will not go out. And you also have to understand, like what the ambassador said, China is going through severe problems. I read China every day, and I've been talking to you people every day. No one trusts China today. right? If you see what's going on in the two sessions today, they themselves don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
And the chances of their internal implosion, they might not implode as a nation, but the chances of the CCP fracturing is pretty high at some stage. I mean, that's not out of the equation at all. If that happens, China will go back to Mao's days. So, there are problems in China. So the trust, who will invest in China? When the FDIs are the lowest, the the Middle East countries and West Asia want to do a transfer of their wealth into something tangible as fossil fuels run out into the future. One day they'll not have oil. And today they have money based on oil. They have to convert it into something. Where will they go? They can't go to USA because they're already over invested in USA. Like what the ambassador said, that Europe is economically in ruins. Okay, then इस इलाके का जो गोल्डन चिड़िया है वो इंडिया है, वो
फिर
सोने
से
का चिड़िया इंडिया है और यहीं आएंगे ये. And this is what we are going to discuss on this weekend on Saturday with General Narayanan. How India's rise is inevitable and unstoppable. We have come to that stage that it is unstoppable, and many people recognize this. But then that's for the weekend, right? We'll talk about this thing. Yeah, yeah, this question, sir. This is the last question I'll take, and after that, we'll call it a day. Apparently, Mrs. Victoria Newland has resigned from the post, her post. Expected effect of this on the geopolitics of West Asia and India. Your views?
Well, I I don't think that she was so much instrumental in
Uh-huh.
this. You see, USA, as far as US is concerned, it has its own deep state, and the deep state plays to the hilt. And Victoria Newland was actor enough, I would say, in Georgia at that time, many years ago. But of course, as in a position, she was very influential. But I doubt very much that this is going to have any direct impact in West Asia, because West Asians, most of the major countries in West Asia, have begun to understand their own importance, and that they are on their own at the moment. I think they are trying to play again between China and between the USA and Russia and all. So they are also having the hedging their bets. So I doubt very much that's going to have any impact. Of course, as you know, the policy as far as USA is concerned in the Middle East is driven by security and stability of Israel. That is the fundamental dimension which will not change irrespective of whoever comes to power
Right, sir. So I have two, three more questions for you. I mean, they've asked. So if you could give short
there.
answers, we'll still take
Yes.
them because they'll feel happy. Good evening, gentlemen. Always enjoy Ganesh. Thanks a lot. I love the Shankar ji analysis. Thank you. Hello a lot, particularly with Sanjay Dixit. That's fine. My question is: next decade war between China and India, is it inevitable? Your views, sir, because in my view, it will not happen.
Well, personally, I also feel that neither China nor India want a war. Of course, we have a problem, and the problem is China has understood that India is the only country that can stand up to it, and they stand up strongly. They don't want war for the simple reason that both countries want to become economic giants. And the moment there is a war, the both will go back.
The both will go down.
But
So
but there are certain countries that may benefit from it for maintaining the supremacy. So I don't know what kind of games will play eventually. So it's difficult to
yeah.
crystal gaze.
Okay. Ambassador Trigunayak, do you foresee Saudi Arabia having formal diplomatic relations with Israel by the end of this decade? I think he said that, but you could
Yes,
reiterate.
but I think that Saudi Arabia is becoming very pragmatic now, and there was almost it was a done deal. Today, the Israeli planes fly over Saudi airspace. There is no problem with that. When our Prime Minister visited, he also flew over it. They allowed the permission to go to Israel over Saudi airspace. There have been interactions between Saudi Arabia and this. It is only currently, and even now, Saudi Arabia is not saying that they will have nothing to do with it. But they are saying is that there should be a forward movement on the Palestinian question. And I think
Yeah,
eventually, once Netanyahu is out of the picture, then there would be some kind of a move forward, because the Americans, the whole world today wants some movement in this direction so the cycle of violence can stop. And therefore, I think that end of decade, you rightly put it, I see it going forward.
uh, Is Qatar a trustworthy LNG supplier? What are the other equivalent options to diversify?
Well, I think that Qatar has been one of our biggest supplier of LNG and have consistently supplied. We have recently signed a big deal of more than $80 billion with them, which will last till 2048. So, which is actually, you see, the thing is, I always used to tell my friends in the Middle East that you are producing oil, we are buying that. You are producing gas, we are buying that. We need it. If it doesn't come from here, we'll find alternate routes. But at the same time, they also need to find the markets, and that's why there is a great change in their policies. And you know that the release of the Indian Navy personnel was also part of this, that they understood the importance of economic importance of India as a market as well. It's a long term. Every pragmatic leader would do that. So we respect the Qatari this thing, and we have excellent relations with them also. One of the few countries with which we have signed the defense agreement, actually, the first one in the GCC. Other options, in my view, is going forward has to be alternate sources of energy, whether it is nuclear, whether it is gas based, or whether it is hydrogen or renewable energy, solar energy. India is leading in that at a very fast pace. But for next 20, 30 years, I think we'll require the hydrocarbons going forward.
Yeah, I think so, sir. I think we've covered the whole lot of questions. Please ask my question, General Shankar. I don't see a question, Cholaji, so I can't take it. So otherwise, I would have given you that thing. But sir, thanks a lot. I think you covered West Asia in a fantastic manner. What I'd like to tell everyone is what comes out today. What the ambassador has said is that the West Asia as a whole, all countries, and India have to invest in each other because the mutual security and their future lies in investing in each other. Whether it is as a block or on a one-to-one basis, we don't have a choice but to go along with each other, right? And that's what comes out. And as far as we are concerned, as we rise, and like I said, our rise will not go down. It's not. We don't have the kind of. We will not get into the problems which China has got into. But as we rise, we need to understand this area because we have tremendous stakes in this, and you have to get a hold of this area, expand your footprint, and expand your footprint not only in terms of area, in the term kind of activities which you do. And that is something which we have to do this transition, right? I think that's the major issue, sir, which you have brought out today, which I think was a major issue, because most of us look India in two binaries: India, Pakistan, India, China. But India has to look beyond these two countries to much more if it wants to be a power of reckoning in this area, or not only here in this area, in the globe also. So all it leaves me is I must thank you
Thank
for
you,
this
sir. Thank you
fantastic
so much.
exposure. And let me tell you, I learned a lot today,
No,
personally.
no, sir.
Right?
Thank you very much.
Look, every time I tell you, I speak to someone like you, my eyes and my vision opens up. Thanks a lot, and thanks a
No,
lot
sir.
from
Thank you.
everyone in Ganashwa.
Likewise. It's always an
And
honor
we
to
would,
be on.
yeah,
Sir.
I look forward personally for you to come back on Ganashwa sometime
Sure, sir.
down the line.
It'll
Thank
be
you,
a great
sir.
pleasure, sir.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
and good evening and Jai Hind.
Thank you to your audience also, sir.